So like I was saying, this is for the front piece. And so what I've done is I've kind of just sketched in a little, kind of little figure of a woman here. The front of her, you can see her belly button, her hips, her bust. When they talk about the center front and the center front bust level, it might be a little confusing if you don't understand all of these different areas of the sloper. So what I did is I went ahead and I wrote in some labels so that you can get a better understanding. This line here is the center front of the figure. I wrote center front, and I also wrote center here on this little sketch of the woman. It means that from her neck down to her belly button, you have a very straight, perfectly straight line. That they're considering the center front of the form. You would have the same thing on the back. You'd have a center back line that runs from the neck down to the waist, and that would be the center back, another straight line. Then what you have is you have a curve around the neck, like I've drawn here, a neck, and I could put a little necklace on her so you can see that that's her neck area. This is the neckline. This line that runs across is the shoulder of the sloper. And this curved line that runs below is the armhole. So you can see that it wraps under her arm here. Then across the side over here, that's a little hard to see, this is the side seam. So we went ahead and labeled that as the side seam. Again, it's very similar on the back piece. Down here we have the waist. And so you can see here that I've kind of drawn the waist closed off, and the reason for that is because you will eventually stitch your darts. And so if I were to take my finished piece here and kind of close it off, it would look very similar to that image with a closed off dart, and this is the entire waist. So you'll see here that I've labeled it as waist here and waist here because this needs to be sewn or closed. I also took the liberty of labeling this as dart so that you know that this opening here is a dart. So it looks similar to what we've kind of done in our sewing classes. And so what I want you to do is I want you to realize that these are all parts of the figure, okay? So hopefully these little drawings help you out a little bit. One thing that I also did was I started to plot a little bit, but I'm going to backtrack just so you guys can, see what I've done. I'm going back to the book now and I'm rereading. I wanted to start with the French, which was number 1. But to start with that, the French dart can be placed at any angle below the straight dart. I need to know where the straight dart is first. So I'm going to plot that. And so it tells me that the center front bust dart and the straight dart are squared from the center front. So again, it sounded confusing. Hopefully it makes more sense now. I know that this is the center front line. I wrote it there. Now they're telling me that the center front bust level dart and the straight dart are both squared from this line. That means that it's going to be perfectly perpendicular. So what I've done is I've just taken my ruler and I've used one of the lines. I've lined it up on my center front line, and then I've just drawn a new perpendicular line that goes straight across from, and I'm going to start at the apex or that bust point, that push, that little hole there, and then a little push hole, and then I'm going to go across to the side there. Okay, so hopefully, yep, so clean. So with that one squared line, I made my number 2 straight dart and my number 8, my center front bust level dart. Now, when they say squared, they mean that they want it perfectly perpendicular. So that's why I was able to use my ruler, line it up, and draw a line the opposite direction. They're gonna say squared or they're gonna say parallel or perpendicular for a while, but eventually they're gonna stop using those terms and they're just gonna draw these symbols. So you may see something like this on one of your samples, on one of the assignments, and it might not say anything about squaring a line, but they draw this symbol here, or maybe you see this little symbol in the corner. That means that it's a perfect right angle. It means that it's a perfect 90 degrees. It means that this line is perpendicular to this line. Okay, so make sure that you can identify those symbols because eventually that's all you'll see. Okay, so I already just did 2. That was nice. I plotted my straight and I plotted my bust level. Now I can plot my French dart because again, I couldn't do it until I had my straight. Now, according to the instructions, I can do my French dart wherever I want. So I'm going to do it similar to what they have, where it's on the side seam. I'm just going to try and see if I can get it to look similar to what the book shows. So I'm going to make sure you guys can see all of this. And I'm gonna plot it, oh, I don't know, somewhere around there, let's say. And again, you just really wanna make sure that you are using that punch hole, which is the apex, so bust point. Okay, now I've done my number one, my French dart. So I'm gonna label that French dart. Okay, so I have my number one French dart, my number two, my straight dart. Now let's move on to my number three. So my mid armhole. Well, it's hard to kind of tell on theirs again because it's so small and there's not a lot of information. Where is that mid armhole? So again, if I go back to the instructions and if I read through, it tells me that the mid armhole dart is directed from the bust point, so from my dot, that bust point, from my bust point to the armhole notch. Oh, so that's pretty easy. Good thing I traced that notch. So I'm just gonna take my ruler, and again, I'm gonna line it up so that it's coming directly from my bust point, that little hole, directly to my notch. And making sure it's spot on there, and I'm gonna trace that out. Okay, so that's it. And I'm going right in the smack dab middle of it because it's kind of a cut, so I just go right in the middle of that notch. And now I can label that number three, and I can label that mid armhole. Okay, I'm halfway there almost. Okay, now my number four. My number four is shoulder tip. Now, that one is pretty easy, pretty straightforward if you think about it. They're just saying that the very shoulder tip is where they want you to connect your dart. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take my ruler, I'm gonna go from the very corner to my bust point, and I am going to draw a line there. And I'm gonna label that as my number four. My shoulder.
I need this one.
Oh, you can have some, but don't have them all. Just a couple, just a couple. A couple of post-it notes for Abby. You want pink or green?
I like,
Don't look at the table.
pink.
Pink? There you go. Welcome. Oh, I need those actually. I'll keep those out. Okay, so now I have my shoulder tip. So I've got 4 of my 10. So it says 9, but we're gonna talk about one extra one. Okay, I'm gonna move this around a little bit. Now the next one is mid-shoulder. Oh, and again, mid-shoulder doesn't really show a whole lot, like, where is it? But it's in the name. So the mid-armhole dart is directed from the bust point of the armhole notch, and the shoulder dart is placed at the princess line. So shoulder dart, mid-shoulder, it's on the princess line. And so essentially what you can do is you can divide in half this measurement. So this is where you may want to use one of the quilting rulers. I'm using this larger ruler because it's hopefully easier for you to see. My quilting one's a little bit lighter, but you definitely want to have that quilting ruler, which I'm going to grab.